Thank you, Minister, and good morning, everybody. Tim Wiebusch, Emergency Management Commissioner. Victoria is in the midst of one of our most challenging and difficult fire seasons and storm seasons. Yesterday, we saw very challenging conditions both for our firefighters, for our storm responders, for our incident managers, but most importantly, our communities. Conditions we experienced yesterday with fire are unlike what we've seen in 2009 and 2019-20 fire seasons. Yesterday we saw more than 200 grass and scrub fires affect every corner of our state. Of those 200 fires, 11 of those became major fires. 2 of those had already been in the landscape before we commenced yesterday, as we know. We are now back to 10 of those fires remaining as major fires, and I'll come to those in a moment. Importantly, many of these major fires will continue to burn for days, if not weeks. And so we need our communities to remain alert and continue to look out for the emergency warnings that are in place at this time. We are expecting more fires today as a result of lightning that occurred throughout yesterday afternoon and overnight, and sometimes throughout today. In particular, the Otways and the Gippsland region are where we could see some of those fires coming up after lightning that occurred yesterday. We're working as hard as we can on those 10 major fires to bring them under control and progressively allow access back into those areas for our communities. Yesterday we saw over 340 warnings issued across the state. That's a very significant volume of warnings, and we thank you, the community, for heeding those warnings, but we need you to keep looking and reading through those warnings as they're released. Importantly, we did... Just turn the lights back on, somebody, please. Sorry, folks. It wasn't a blackout, it was just a timeout on the lights. As you may know, we've had potential impact zone maps that were in place yesterday to alert communities as to what the risk of fire might be for communities that were around some of those largest fires. Those potential impact zone maps are now being taken down from the Vic Emergency website, and what we need communities to do now is focus on the remaining warnings. So communities that were in those potential impact zone areas can now go back and look at the warnings. If you are no longer in the warning footprint, it is safe for you to return to those areas. But you need to remain alert because we still have those 10 major fires in the landscape. Last night, as the Premier mentioned, the Minister and I provided advice around a state of disaster. The focus of our advice was around 3 things in particular. The first of those was having the ability to control movement of people in and out of those fire disaster areas. And we can't appeal enough to the community that if you're in and around those areas, please stay away from those fire footprints until we declare them safe to return. You will see that there are traffic management points in place. There'll be warnings that talk about not safe to return, and there may be exclusion zones that we implement over these coming days. So where you see those 3 conditions, the traffic management points, warnings that say it's not safe to return, or those exclusion zones, we don't want tourists. We don't want visitors. We want people to stay safe at this time. The second reason was around being able to give effect to further evacuations if they need to occur in the coming days. And again, we're seeing good responses from our community, but that state of disaster gives that ability as well. It also gives us the ability to implement other things as time goes on, as this emergency situation evolves and we move into the recovery phase. The areas that are covered by the state of the disaster are as follows: the Alpine Shire, the Ararat Rural City, Colac Otway Shire, Corangamite Shire, East Gippsland Shire, Golden Plains Shire, Greater Bendigo City, Horsham Rural City, Lake Mountain Alpine Resort, Mansfield Shire, Mildura Rural City, the Mitchell Shire, the Moira Shire, Mount Alexander Shire, Murrindindi Shire, the Pyrenees Shire, Strathbogie Shire, Towong Shire and Wellington Shire. Obviously, if we have fires that commence and grow in other areas, we may add to those areas, but those 18 local government areas and the one alpine resort area are the areas that are the focus of the stated disaster at this time, and we'd ask people to heed the advice that I've just given. I now want to move to what we know about losses from the major fires that we have had here in Victoria. And we have had significant losses both in terms of community assets, residential properties and our agricultural impacts as well. And our thoughts are very much with communities that have been impacted at this time. At the Ravenswood and Harcourt fire, we've seen the most significant numbers at this point in time. Approximately 50 structures have been already identified as being lost in that fire, but that is a conservative number and we are expecting there could be more. And we've also seen impacts to critical infrastructure, in particular the Bendigo railway line that has been impacted by fire and is now closed and buses are replacing trains. The second largest impact is on the Longwood fire, where we've now seen approximately 30 structures that have been lost. And again, impact assessments are still occurring in that area. But most significantly, we've seen significant livestock, cropping land and vineyards that have also been impacted or destroyed by that fire. At the Grass Flat or Nattymuck fire in the state's west, we've seen approximately 20 structures that have been lost, and again, significant livestock and also agricultural impacts of that fire. At the Yarrawee fire in the state's north, on the Murray Valley Highway, we've seen approximately 10 structures that have been lost to fire there, and again, grazing and cropping pastures as well. The Streatham fire in the west of the state, we've seen approximately 5 structures that have been confirmed as lost, and a significant amount of agricultural impacts there as well. And then back in the northeast of the state for the Walwa fire, Mount Lawson fire, we've only seen a small number of structure losses there, but a very significant loss of economic pine plantations there, with around 10,000 hectares now lost as a result of that fire. We've also brought into our state in recent days over 160 personnel from interstate, and we have another 32 personnel that are arriving from interstate. So we now have Country Fire Service South Australia, New South Wales Rural Fire Service. We have people also coming across to us from other parts of Australia. And yesterday I requested additional resources both from a national and international level to support us over the next month, and we'll talk about that in coming days. To wrap it up, again, I can't emphasise enough that we have a number of warnings that are still in the landscape. While those potential impact zone maps are now being withdrawn, there are still 19 emergency warnings and 16 watch and act warnings that are in the landscape. They are the most serious of our warnings, but even an advice message is alerting communities to something they need to keep an eye on.